and this includes Prime Minister Modi, who have put out a message of solidarity. In fact, this is what the Prime Minister has said. We are going to show you what Prime Minister Modi has said. He says, relief to hear that President Trump, the First Lady, the Vice President Vance, they're all safe and unharmed following the recent security incident at the Washington, D.C. hotel. I extend my best wishes for their continued safety and well-being. Violence has no place in our democracy, must be unequivocally condemned. Well, there you have it. Prime Minister Modi coming out and giving out a very clear message that India will never stand by violence, saying that we stand in solidarity right now with the American public and the American administration at a time when they have come under attempt. In fact, we have joined with us today on the show. We have Dr. Joseph Khalil, who's joining us, a geopolitical expert as well as an author. Also, Srinjoy Chaudhary is there with us, our consulting editor. Srinjoy, Prime Minister Modi there putting out a message, and it's important what he says. The violence has no place in a democracy. The stated position of India always.
Yes, no place for violence in a democracy, and India has suffered because of violence. India's democracy has been threatened by violence. We have seen assassinations before in independent India. Mahatma Gandhi, Indira Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi, of course, right after independence in 1948. Indira Gandhi assassinated when she was Prime Minister in 84. Rajiv Gandhi, when he was fighting an election, he had been Prime Minister before. He could well have been Prime Minister again, and he was assassinated in 91. So there have been a series of assassinations. There have been assassination attempts. But, of course, President Trump has made one interesting point, that only impactful people receive bullets. And he's also said, being president is dangerous. A racing car driver being a racing car driver is less dangerous than being a president, because 5% roughly of all presidents are attacked. Yes, 4 presidents have been assassinated: Lincoln, Garfield, McKinley, Kennedy, and of course several have been hit. Very famously, Ronald Reagan, when he was shot by John Hinckley, later told his wife, I forgot to duck. Others have been threatened, like Gerald Ford. But President Trump, when he was not president, there were 2 attempts, and he was hit once in the ear, and that grazed his ear, and this is the 3rd attempt. But as he says, he's safe. The First Lady is safe, the Vice President is safe, members of the Cabinet are safe, and the Secret Service officer who took the bullet, and fortunately it hit a bulletproof vest, is safe.
Yes, at least that is the silver lining. In fact, President Trump himself said that they've done an impressive job. He was asked specifically, were there any security lapses? Why is it that he says that he's fine with the fact that there was one person who was clearly armed? He had knives as per some report, he had gun for sure, and he apparently assembled his weapon inside the hotel, the Washington Hilton itself. There were also other correspondents who came rushing out when the evacuation was happening, saying that there were no pat-downs, which had happened as they entered as well. So there are questions being asked about if there was a possible security lapse. What we do know is that the 31-year-old shooter was a guest of that hotel. But let me also go across to David K. Johnson, who's joining us, a senior journalist as well as a professor from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Johnson. It's quite interesting. We are talking about the Washington Hilton. Apparently, it has a bit of a backstory as well. This is where you have had a former Reagan, if I'm not mistaken, who was also targeted there. There was an assassination bid on him. At that time, Ronald Reagan had managed to escape with a bullet to his chest. He was rushed to the hospital. So this is quite a bit of a jinx, it appears.
Well, this is a hotel that actually security services like to have dignitaries speak at. The design of this hotel, which is about 1.5 miles from the White House, is done in such a way that you can set up multiple security barriers or moats outside. Many of the correspondents who came tonight had to get out of their limousines 3 blocks away. So you had women correspondents in high heels and cocktail dresses walking uphill for 3 blocks to get to this event. But this is an absolute security failure, and it's part of a long-running problem with the Secret Service that Congress has not been willing to address. We had terrible Secret Service issues arise when Barack Obama was president. No assassination attempt against him, but serious problems. We've had other failures, and this is a security failure. Even though they stopped him just ahead of the metal detectors, the magnetometers, nonetheless, this is an absolute security failure. And it's troubling to hear the Trump appointees and the police chief of Washington, D.C. at the press conference talk about what a great job was done. Yeah, they stopped the guy at the end, but he should have never gotten anywhere near as close as he did being armed. And according to the FBI's statement to Reuters, armed with, among other things, a shotgun, not a plastic weapon that you can hide, but a shotgun, a long gun.
Absolutely. And in fact, let me take that across to Dr. Khalil as well. There does appear to be a safety security lapse somewhere. If this man with a shotgun could come as close to the screening area, and this is the door right before the president was there inside the ballroom. Tell us a bit about the ballroom as well, if you could, about how I believe that it is subterranean, which is why one would have expected greater security measures put in place, especially tonight.
Yes, that is correct. In fact, this White House, again, nearby Hotel Hilton is very nearby. And as you said, there's previous incidents happened 40 years ago with President Ronald Reagan in the same hotel. Again, it's on the street side, even though there is blockades available. But even with the blockades, if you are a guest at the hotel, as this guy was, first of all, a lot of levels of failure from intelligence in learning that there is a potential risk. I was told there have been warnings to the president and to the Correspondents Association regarding this event, and they chose to go ahead with it, even with security threats. But having intelligence failure, having the perimeters breached, outside perimeter breached, even though again they were not able to come downstairs to the basement level. At least in the entrance, having long gun, as the previous speaker just mentioned, and along with the handgun and multiple knives, as I was told, yes. Even to a crazy guy, it doesn't look like he's a trained assassin or a trained military, trained individual. To able to do this is shameful. At the same time, we should also look into why there is DHS failures could happen, because the Secret Service agents who are currently protecting the president are currently not paid for, so they don't receive their salary. There is Democrats have blocked. There is a shutdown of the Homeland Security Department in the U.S. So while the U.S. is at war in a different outside in Middle East, we are not protecting our own. So recently the TSA agents, which are protecting the airports, are just being paid, but the Secret Service, the other Homeland Security functions, the people who were supposed to be protecting the homeland, are not getting their paychecks. So, and then President Trump also mentioned, if we had a ballroom which he wants to build inside the White House perimeter, this wouldn't have happened, because as you know, the White House has multiple checkpoints, multiple layers of security. Nobody walks in anywhere with anything similar to this without having background checked, without having your body patted down. So would it have been safer if we had a White House ballroom where this event was happening? But the point remains, I think the country should come together. We should pay the people in the Homeland Security. We should stop the shutdown of DHS funding and come together. And thank God the president is safe.
Well, in fact, do stay on with us. Let me go across to Sagarika, who's joining us. I believe we have several posts also coming in.
Meghna, I'm going to take you through the account of an ABC correspondent who says that she has attended such events in the past, and there are some important things things that she's pointed out. So she says, her name is Beatrice Peterson. She is the National Enterprise reporter of ABC, and she's put out an account where she's saying that I've been going to the White House Correspondents Dinner or a pre-party event for nearly 15 years. A few things about security and access that might be helpful context, to which she adds that the pre-parties usually happen in different salons inside the Washington Hilton before the main dinner. They are invite only, but there's a lot of movement between events, media, officials, guests. Hotel guests often sit at the lobby bar watching people come and go. Now, getting into those spaces typically means showing invitations at each entrance. There's security posted and is visible and also invisible, but generally not the same level of screening you see at the main dinner. The White House Correspondents' Dinner itself is different. That's where you go through metal detectors, credential checks, and tighter access control. It's always been that. This year wasn't wildly different. The basic setup has been pretty consistent over the years. Pre-party is more fluid, the dinner is more locked down. Security overall is always present inside and outside, a mix of plain clothes and uniform. You'd notice it more depending on the moment. From what I saw earlier, the crowd felt typical. For a year that the president was going to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, security presence also felt in line with the past years. There will be multiple investigations as to what happened and if or any failures occurred, but the dinner itself will never be the same. So here she's talking about what her experience has been over the last 15 years, specifically talking about the kind of security presence and the security detail at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. But yes, investigators will have to find out how there could be such a massive security breach at the Washington Hilton.
Well, absolutely. In fact, stay with us. Let's also take our viewers through the pictures, the CCTV footage that we've managed to access, which shows the shooter running away, at least trying to run. And this is the shooter there, appears to be shooting, and you can see the shooter trying to run away. This, you can see him right there in the middle. He seems to be darting off. You can see him from frame left to frame right, shooting and darting away. This is the person there, this dark shadowy figure that you can see. This is the man, the 31-year-old from California that we have been getting you details about. And you can see on both sides, there seems to be a lot of security, Secret Service men and women and forces who seem to be there. In this one frame itself, there are at least 10 to 15 people who appear to be of security who are there at a time when we see the shooter run past. And this is something which has been posted by Donald Trump as well. In fact, we are getting you a report as well, a ground report which is coming in from the spot at the time when the shooting had taken place, minutes after that, where a high security zone turned into this scene of chaos within seconds. Take a look at this report.
मैं इस वक्त वाशिंगटन डीसी के हिल्टन होटल के बाहर हूँ, जहाँ कुछ ही देर पहले प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप हमारे साथ डिनर कर रहे थे और सडनली हमने आवाज़ सुनी जैसे कि कुछ डिशेस क्लैटर हुए। जैसे मैंने मुड़कर देखा तो सर्वर्स जो हैं वो अपनी ट्रेज लेके अंदर की तरफ भागे और उसी वक्त मुझे लगा कि कुछ सही नहीं है और कुछ सिक्योरिटी लैप्स हुई है इस टाइम पर। सारे लोग जो हैं, जो टेबल्स पे अपना डिनर कर रहे थे, फर्स्ट कोर्स कर रहे थे, वो टेबल के नीचे छुपने की कोशिश कर रहे थे, ग्राउंड पे लेट गए। ये कुछ तकरीबन 5-10 मिनट ऐसे चलता रहा और जैसे मैं उठी और जैसे मुझे लगा कि अभी मैं सेफ हूँ, तो मैंने स्टेज की तरफ देखा तो उतने में प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप को सबसे पहले सिक्योर कर दिया गया था। जो फर्स्ट लेडी है मेलानिया ट्रंप, उन्हें भी लेके चले गए थे वहां से एक सेफ जोन पे। और तकरीबन 12-13 मिनट के बाद जो कैबिनेट मेंबर्स हैं, स्कॉट बेसेंट थे, पीट हेग्सेट थे, काश पटेल थे, जिन्हें मैं थोड़ी देर पहले ही मिली थी और हम कैजुअली बात कर रहे थे, उन्हें बाहर निकाला गया। कैरोलाइन लेविट को बाहर निकाला गया। जो सारे बेसिकली कैबिनेट के मेंबर्स हैं, उन सभी को यहाँ से निकाला गया और तकरीबन 30-35 मिनट्स के बाद पूरी जो होटल है उसको सील कर दी गई थी। सील करने के बाद एक अनाउंसमेंट हुई कि ये जो प्रोग्राम है अब बंद कर दिया जाएगा। सो ओवरऑल ये डेफिनेटली एक सिक्योरिटी लैप्स है कहीं ना कहीं। कि एक गनमैन जो है एक गन लेकर इतनी सिक्योर जगह में आके और उसने फायरिंग की है। आने वाले वक्त में हमें पता चलेगा सारी डिटेल्स का in the next maybe 1 hour or so. In Washington, D.C., Reena Bhardwaj for ANI.
Well, that, of course, was one of the correspondents who was part of the dinner, the White House dinner. It was happening at the Washington Hilton. We are discussing what the security measures would have been in place for something which is as high profile an event as this. Remember, there are about 4,000 odd people, attendees, and perhaps more who were part of this massive dinner where the president himself gives a speech. How did this happen? What we are showing you is the footage of the entire dais. Now, that is the dais, and on the other side of it were where the correspondents were sitting, and on the dais, you had the entire cabinet sitting. You had the president there who was evacuated from the stage left. On the other hand, we are getting you the visuals of how the Vice President, this is JD Vance, that you can see being pulled away by the scruff. He was pulled away by the Secret Service agents and he exited stage right. Remember, both the President, the Vice President, the First Lady, even the top cabinet members of the Trump administration were sitting here, and the evacuation happened briskly within seconds. In fact, these are the visuals, the latest updates that are coming in, minute-by-minute updates that we are going to be explaining to you. But also, we are going to decode for you what really happened in this night when there was a second attempt, it appears, on the life of Donald J. Trump. Remember, when he was asked why he gets repeated attempts on his life, he said, well, it is because he's done something impactful. We're going to leave you with these visuals. I'll see you in 2 minutes. Stay tuned.